Hey, what's up, everybody? Joed here. Um, it's pretty late. It's 10:30 at this time, but had an extra cup of coffee and feeling up for it, and to cross off one of those things that I've been meaning to do, and I wanted to share. So I'm gonna do that tonight. Basically, let me exit out the software. By the way, this software I use for screencasting and live streaming is called OBS. Check that out and hit me up if you want to learn more about how to make the most of OBS for live streaming and presentations and all that stuff. Um, I, a while back I was asked to speak to a class regarding financial freedom and financial literacy, and I agreed with special disclaimers that this is going to be almost like a precursor to financial literacy. And I say that because a lot of times by and large, financial literacy is hinged upon a consumeristic, hyper capitalistic mindset that has really dominated our society for the past 50 years. Before we had a society and a culture in America where saving was valued. There was actually a time where credit cards was looked at in a way that was negative, where people would just, it would make no sense to people to have credit cards. Like it had a hard time getting traction. It wasn't until a neat marketing trick slash exclusive type of feel that was attached to having benefits towards going out at night, different restaurants and different things, that it actually started to take off from there. But there was a time where they tried to push credit cards on people, and it just didn't take off. So I felt like in order to unhinge ourselves from this quote unquote reality that we live in, where you have to live paycheck to paycheck and you just gotta work hard and save up and all this stuff, the quote unquote common wisdom is really not really going to do anything for the average student, especially, which is a lot of the lens where I come from and I bring to the table, especially when you're working with students of color, low income, first generation. Like kiss that all goodbye, because if it's hard enough for the average American student to really get ahead financially, think about those who didn't have the financial backing and financial safety net of parents or grandparents who did well in earlier generations. And so this should be really titled, like this should be kind of like this is not a financial literacy 101. This is more so a prerequisite to make the most of financial literacy, true financial literacy. You got to understand these principles, because if financial literacy isn't taking you to financial freedom, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be better at getting better credit cards, better at getting better sales and deals, but without having the true liberty of having financial freedom. Owning a house, actually paying off the house before you're 80 years old. Actually not waiting till your 50s or 60s or 70s to actually pay off your school debt. Like, these are like things that are not even spoken about when we're talking about financial literacy. And I think it really needs to be driven home big time in our circles. Again, especially those who are serving low-income first-gen students. So forgive me if I beat up on the traditional wisdom, but if you want to hear a different perspective, this, you're in the right place. And lastly, a lot of the belief sets that I have about financial freedom and the fight for financial freedom, because it is a fight. It's not something you can accidentally stumble upon. You have to literally come out the corner swinging to get financially free. It borrowed from the teachings of Dave Ramsey of Financial Peace University, which is a faith-based program that talks about a way to manage your money and your finances in a way that is in alignment with the Bible. regardless of your spiritual religious background, you can take all the religious stuff out of it and just listen to Dave Ramsey from a secular perspective, and all those principles will apply. It almost kind of bugs me a little bit that it's a lot of his Financial Peace University stuff is hinged to the Bible, because it could be actually applied to everyone, regardless of your background, and he might be losing some audience members that way, but I don't know. That's just I'm ranting now. But anyways, here it is, the fight for financial freedom. Here's the slides. I'm going to open source all this stuff, and you can take it as long as you edit it and change it however you want. And, just as long as you cite me in the beginning slide, and this slide right here of my information, that this slide came from this person, and this is how you can reach him, and the closing slide. If you can just put my information up there just to cite the original author, that would be great. And again, you can take this and do whatever you want with it. Okay, I ain't that special where I want to try to keep this under the hood and keep it only where I can only present this stuff. The mission of what we're trying to do for our people is too important to do that. So let's jump in. Activity. I always start this activity with the students because, number one, it's low production. A lot of icebreakers are the great ones. Sometimes require a lot of supplies and coordination. There's a nice handful that doesn't require any of that stuff. Maybe more, but I like this one the most because it really is low production. It gets the students to talk to one another, and it can let you kind of get insights of what they're going to share with you from the jump, which I sometimes use as a way to navigate and transition to different slides. So it's giving me ammunition to come back at a later point to make it even more customizable and applicable to the students. So it's, how do you feel about money? And you pretty much take out a piece of paper, put create 4 boxes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, it's just a basic icebreaker. In the top left, you're going to put a picture of your earliest memory with money. Top right, draw a picture of what you did for your first job ever. Bottom left, you're going to draw a picture of 1 or 2 things you would do first if you won the lottery. And bottom right, which is probably the biggest one where I use as a transition point and feed off the students, is draw a picture of your biggest challenge with money matters. And if it's too personal, if it's too traumatic, then what's your biggest pet peeve? Anyways, just some funny ones that I've heard. But do that. I'll ask the students to take a couple minutes. I'll play some music in the background, and share with one another, 1 or 2. I'll regroup after 5 to 7 minutes, depending on the size of the group and the energy. I'll regroup and ask 1 or 2 people to share from each box. So I'm giving a lot of people time to really share some of these things, and they have to almost share the picture first and then explain it. I should have said that to begin with. There's no words, just pictures. You have to draw a picture of these things for each section, and they get the chance to kind of have the other person guess, and then they get to explain and correct if they're right or wrong. A lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. This is a great one to get people chatting, loosens up the vibe, and I like to have fun with this one with jokes and kind of transitions. So this last one I did, someone said the biggest challenge is that when she's going through when she's angry or frustrated, sometimes she goes shopping, either online or even at a local store. And that was a perfect segue for me because it was an emotional trigger that caused a spending habit. And that's really the issue here with a lot of this stuff when it comes to money. It is emotional state that is most important before a mental state when it comes to money. So that's the first point I want to drive home with this, is that it is emotional before it's mental. And I want to just really bring that home, because again, the common wisdom is that you got to get your math straight to get your money straight, and that is the biggest piece of garbage out there. You got to get your heart right before you get your money game right, because money is oftentimes 80% an emotional issue that we have, where we are hijacked with our emotions, our mood, impulse, and we do something. And it's just essentially the same thing, but I'm just trying to use this language of heart over psychology, even though it's the same thing, to really drive home the point that we gotta mind our emotions on this. So this is the first thing we gotta fight for, is a fight for emotional state when it comes to money. Now, it's funny how we can justify what we want and spend as a form of therapy. Like, it's funny how, on certain things, it's like it's easy for us to like not spend money on. But for other things, it's like we will do some ninja mental gymnastics to justify it. I know for me, I am a sucker for coffee. So I might not do the big purchases on Amazon or stuff for the house or stuff for my daughter. It might be just 1,000 paper cuts, death by 1,000 paper cuts, the saying is, where I'm just a coffee here, Starbucks there, Dunkin' there, a little this, a little that. And over the course of the month, it adds up. And so that's a strong one. So we justify it, easily, when really a lot of these things can be dealt with. That's the first piece, and as an example, because it's important for me to speak from a place of authenticity and realness. I really kind of go into my background a little deeper than maybe the average person would, but it really helps with my sharing these points by sharing my story. I was born and raised in Camden, New Jersey, and both parents in complete college. Only one completed high school. I had a super religious background. My father struggled with money at an early age. I remember having some memories of that and seeing and witnessing that. My first year after high school, I made a vow not to live in poverty. And I remember, this may be too much information, TMI, but I remember I was coming home after working. I actually worked at a detailing shop, and of course I had these chemicals and I'm working with and all that stuff, detailing cars. And I just made a vow. I was in the shower, and I said, I'm not going to live paycheck to paycheck, and that's where really things start to click for me. I was a big believer of working hard and letting input be a factor in output. So I wanted to work hard and just work many hours, and I should be all right in life. Then something clicked where I felt like, all right, it's working smarter, not just harder. And that's where really things get, changing for me. And I started getting paid twice, meaning you do a job and you get paid twice for it. What was that? You get paid hourly and you get paid commission. And that was my shift, or the beginning of like, okay, there is a way to do this that requires, again, a different perspective on it. So after that, almost every job after that, from high school on, every job I did had some element where I got paid twice, and so that was really important to me. And that was kind of like, we talk about the icebreaker being one of the earliest experiences with money. We were struggling so much growing up. Just to give you context of like why this was a big deal for me in high school, because even then at high school our family was struggling a little bit. When I was a little kid, I was getting allowance, and it wasn't much. But I remember when things were tough, my dad would have to take my allowance back, and he would kneel down, explain to me that I'm going to use this money, but I'm going to double it almost. I'm going to double it. I'm going to give you more. And I promise, and that Daddy doesn't break a promise, and it wasn't like traumatic for me. It felt a little weird as a kid being asked for money to help out with the family when I was like really young, super young. But my dad always came through. He never like broke a promise. He always gave me the allowance back. I think it was just like there was too much a month at the end of the money saying, and that really. Again, like I didn't realize at the time, but it really echoed for the rest of my life. So that my year after high school was really a game changer, because I knew I was getting closer to the real world and I needed to start thinking about these things now. So fast forward, um, I got I found ways to work hourly and get paid commissions or bonuses. About a job or two before this, I had the same issue too. Um, got my master's degree for like 75% off. I own 2 cars. One's paid for. I own a home in Philadelphia, where my mortgage is cheaper than some studio apartments in North Jersey. I maxed out my contributions and retirement funds that have been invested well. So my first job, where I was like, my first job out of college, you don't even want to know how low of a salary I had. Like, it was hard, but I still wanted to max out my contributions, and that really helped out years later when things might have slowed down with contributions. I married up. My wife had stock options in her old job and was bought out. And in August, my credit score was 796 out of 850. Super proud of that. Now I threw that in there with I married up, because again we're talking about money being an emotional state. If you again, I gotta be careful how I phrase this, because I don't want to kind of come off like extreme, but who you marry is a financial decision as well. Like, who you engage with romantically is a financial decision, and you better keep that in the forefront of your mind. And I say that because, again, when we're talking about relationships, I think there's an imbalance. Like, is he a good guy? Is she a good girl? And we can't marry. We can't talk. It's hard to talk about money without coming across like, you're marrying someone for the money or that kind of thing. But it has to be a factor, and if it's not a factor, then you're going to be seeing some bumps in the road down the road that you could have avoided. So if you value yourself and value your worth, that has to be a discussion. Like, you should know, if you're in a committed relationship, how they handle money as an indicator of whether or not that person's worth the long term. Of course they can learn on the way, but if you have someone who doesn't like to work, doesn't like to put in extra hours, doesn't like to go overtime because they want to hang out and chill, like, these are indicators that person might not be the best person for you. If you're not that person, then you need to step it up too, so you can find that person and it'd be equal. But just as a side bonus point of like, I was very fortunate that my wife and I both valued financial well-being, and my wife was in an opportunity where she was able to get some stock options, and she was able to take them, and it was like a mandatory buyback, so it wasn't like she had to she was actually forced to get the money back. But so yeah, it was just like right time, right place, but again, like, just made some good decisions. She was positioned, she made the most of her position and her opportunities, and it just kind of like fell the right way, so we were fortunate. And again, my job before I went full time with Panvisio, I was being commissioned, not just salary, and I would get some decent checks, and a lot of that went to debt, and a lot of it went to help pay for our down payment. Anyways, here I'm just getting to the disclaimers and warnings. I'm not a millionaire. I just use a lot of this advice from Dave Ramsey, as I said before. Everything I share is my personal opinion. Seek professional advice and do your own research. And some of the things I share here may make some of your faculty or staff upset, or maybe excited, I don't know. But just know that everywhere you go when it comes to institution, a lot of times there's an institutional bubble or groupthink that when someone else comes in and says something that's contrary to that, can make some people uncomfortable. But these are uncomfortable conversations that have to be had. So this may or may not vibe with your counselor or whatever. But I think students need to hear this. Then if we're talking about if we're talking about diversity and exposure, we got to include intellectual diversity in these topics. So I hope when you take this presentation, you really keep that part in there. And I used to quote that in times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. I think the most, we talk about movements in society, and we romanticize the movement as being only political, only social, and we don't do enough service to the financial revolution. That sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do in your life is get your money game right. So for students of color, students who may not come from who come from a single parent family, who always struggle with money and all these things, just know that yes, you have to do your research on your history, society, politics, becoming more and more conscious. Do not make the mistake that many people do who are quote unquote conscious and overlook and undervalue the role financial freedom plays. Dr. Boyce Watkins says, it comes to the point where you need FU money, meaning you have a safety net there where if you are put in a position in a job, you're not dependent on the job and the boss, and your ethics and your integrity isn't compromised because you're so broke that you have to go with the system. And a lot of people fall into that. So just a shout out to that is that, again, the most revolutionary thing you can do sometimes is get your money game right, because it's not only impacting you, it's impacting your children and future generations. So start now. I hope I'm not rambling too much. Is that I'm fired up. This kind of stuff fires me up. Principle 1, they don't want you to be financially free. They being traditional institutions of political institutions, corporate institutions, and I'm going to go as far as to say educational institutions. Like, they technically, if you look at the way even higher ed is set up with the rise of tuition, don't even get me started on the rise of books. You can tell by actions. If you don't listen to anything they say, just look at the actions and the trends. You're almost left with one viewpoint, and is that they want you to get in debt. They want you to become bearers of this load that will be with you for the rest of your life. And if you think about it, our entire economy is predicated on how the average family needs to spend. There is this thing called planned obsolescence, meaning there is literally a shelf life to all the electronics that we have that are predetermined to or engineered to fail, so you keep on buying it. Just the average coffee machine, like, that's not going to last you 30 years. It's meant to be 3 to 5 if you get the cheaper ones, and even sometimes a little less, a little more, depending on the price range that you go for. But even then, it's meant to. The people who came up with Velcro, they made it, when the first prototype came out, they made it so good that the people came back and says, we need to make it sucky, like make it just good enough for a while, because we want this to be something that people have to buy more and more of over time. And that's why to this day we even have Velcro that after only so many times using it, it gets worn out, and that's engineered that way. So that's back in the 50s when that was really talked about and discovered. And it's in our technology, and it's in also a lot of things. Our financial institutions keep score on how well corporations get you to spend. We call that the credit score, your FICO score. And that's a way to just almost like identify your buying power, and entice you to buy more with credit cards. And this leads to another sub point, which that marketing sales department, and I'm a marketing and sales guy, like, don't get me wrong, and although it may sound like I'm bashing on capitalism, I'm not. I'm pro-capitalism. I'm just saying that these are hyper-capitalism, which is, I think, where we're close to, or if not already there, is messing people up big time for generations. Is that marketing and salespeople and departments try to convince you at every turn why you need or should want their product. I think it was like 800 advertisements that you see just on the way to freaking work. And by the way, some of your freaking, think about this. Some of the stuff that you buy are billboards. Like you wear a shirt that says Nike or whatever it is. You're just a walking billboard. That's why a couple years back, there was this trend of like, of vintage brand name shirts that like kind of looked like they were from the 60s or 70s, and they had like Coca-Cola and had like a vintage look to it, different sodas and different brands. You see the ones from if you ever see the ones of the ice cream cones and Mr. Softy, and it's crazy to me that people will literally buy money or buy a shirt for the privilege to be a walking billboard. Like, I mean, if it's a gift, don't get me wrong, it's free. Then it's for me. But people would spend money on, again, for flashing your status. They want to rock that Michael Kors, whatever it is, and that's what they meant. That's what it's designed to do. So subconsciously, you think you're seeing fashion, my friends. You're not seeing fashion, my friends. You're seeing advertisements. You're seeing status statements through the lens of fashion to make you want to buy. That's why in the hood, it's still a thing to buy Jordans, despite the fact that you might not even have healthy food at home, enough food at home, but you got to get those Jordans, and the family plays into that. Just to really think long and hard about that. So principle one, when they talk about financial freedom, if you really want to know the game, you got to know how they're playing it. And the first one is that everyone around you, they don't want you to be financially free. So keep that in mind. That's principle one. And if you think that all this stuff is just saying like, oh, just hype, this rhetoric, we really just do your research. Everything I say, again, do your own research. But there's an interesting book called Born to Buy. And literally one of the things they talk about was that marketing advertisers are targeting even as young as 2 to 3 year olds on toys, and it's on the record that some of the marketers would write that if we get them to nag, like they even did psychological studies of the parents' patience levels and tolerance levels, that if we get the kid to nag for this many minutes, the probability of the parent breaking down and going for it is significantly more. And so they literally engineer the marketing and stuff like that to try to target 3-year-olds to nag their parents. They don't even advertise to the parents anymore, guys. They advertise to the kids now at 3-year-olds to indoctrinate them to buy stuff. So when I say you were literally indoctrinated as babies to nag your parents for stuff, it's not an overstatement. It's the world we live in. So you have to really get comfortable with that reality that it's that serious, it's that deep, and pay attention. Principle number 2. It was part of the flip of principle number 1, but it's somewhat different. Is that again, principle number 1 being they don't want you to be financially free. They want you to spend. But it's not enough that you kind of like break even, right? Like, all right, you're not in debt, but you're not like financially secure. Like there's like the middle ground people live in too, but it's not enough. Like they want you to not only just like break even, they want you to be in debt. They want you to be in the hole. And if you can't afford what you want, they want to help you get into debt to get you what you want. Again, the credit cards and those things. What more debt means is less leverage for you politically, professionally, and economically. And when I mean leverage, it means your ability to choose more options. So again, going back to the job, money is the job situation. If you're super in debt and you got a job that's paying somewhat above the average, you're so scared to lose that job that you will do anything and say anything to keep that job. And even if it means it's demoralizing. It's breaking your soul, eating at your soul every year. And also politically even, I mean, imagine being able to have so much disposable income that you can actually fund candidates from your community, right? Like, if a lot of times people win campaigns is because money is a huge factor. But what if our people didn't had so much spare money that they actually were able to fund their own candidates and fund their own campaign that's for the people by the people, as cliche as that sounds. How powerful that can be, even for churches, to do their own things instead of waiting on grants and hoping the grants come in. So that's what I mean, that if you have more debt, you're less likely, all your extra money that you get after your food, after your house, after your car, it goes to debt. After that, there's little to anything left over for you to, better your community or better the candidates funding for something that's, something different. Credit cards are a recent invention. It's never, hasn't been here forever. And the only way to get out of your student loan debt is for you to die. There are some forgiveness programs where you can work at a place and they'll forgive some of the debt. But again, that's changing. I mean, our most recent president is trying to change that in the tax laws. So again, if you're just hoping and praying that's going to be still around, good luck. That's not. I don't know if you want to live that way. So principle 2 is that it's not enough that they don't want you to be free, is that they want you to be shackled. One of the early political figures in our country that are foundational, John Adams, said, banks have done more injury to religion, morality, tranquility, banks have done more injury to the religion, morality, tranquility, prosperity, and even the wealth of the nation than they have done or ever will do good. Again, John Adams said that. So back then, people knew how sinister banks and certain lending practices were to the health of a country. Not so much to the government, although that's part of it, but to the people. Because again, once the people get tied down to debt, they're less politically free to revolt and say, we don't want this. We want something else. So there's a political act when it comes to fighting to become debt free. Just in case, for example, less leverage. This was in October last year. The Senate voted to make it harder to sue banks. I know Wells Fargo was one that's been hit big time on this past 5 years of like just the worst practices, sinister, evil, just terrible policies and practices. And it's going to be harder to sue really bad banks and the people who run them. And so it's harder to do that because, again, they don't want you to be free financially. Principle 3, your career choice is often your first weapon for financial freedom. This is probably the hardest truth that students have to realize, is that your desire to be an interpretive dancer of this particular time period of style, which is super niche, like super like I hope that you're okay with being broke for the rest of your life, because the odds of you making it in that space are so low that it's really, you really have to love, breathe, and every moment think about that to really say, like, okay, you're passionate enough that it's like it has to be your career. Like, unless you have no other choice, or you feel like it's like eating at you into the core of your being, that you have to do X, Y, and Z, then all right, be that artist, be that dancer, be whatever it is that you want to be. But if you're not that hardcore with it right now, chances are you're not going to be if you get a job in that space. I've seen people who say, oh, I want to be a social worker, I want to be a teacher, and the career trends are there. Like, they're burning out and they're leaving, and they're bitter because they're burnt out and broke. So what does that say to you? So this whole thing about follow your passion is dangerous advice. Considering your future generation is a great way to really take a second look at your career choices. Is that this choice of what you're gonna do for the rest of your life, quote unquote. You can't be so selfish that it's only about you. It's also about your kids and grandkids. Increase income can be the setup for what you really want. I know a mentor of mine who actually worked at Montclair State University. He was assistant dean, I think, for the humanities department. Carlos Ortiz. He was never a starving artist. He had a solid job. He made good money being an administrator in higher ed, and he used a lot of that disposable income by keeping his housing costs low. I think he lived in a studio apartment. I don't think he ever really owned a home, to be honest. I think he wanted to keep his rent and his other bills so low that all his extra income went to his art, and he had a very successful career. And imagine producing your art or your craft or whatever it is that you're passionate about from a place of like freedom, as opposed to like being torn between, I want to be an actor, but I'm being booked for these cheesy commercials and I feel like I'm selling my soul, versus someone who's like I do this in my free time and I get to choose my projects and I can turn it on and off whenever I want, and it's more of it's like a passion project, it's more than a hobby, but less than a career, something in the middle, and you're living that, so you need to have that mindset. Even Mark Cuban, who's a billionaire, said, don't follow your passion, follow your effort. I think it's, instead of being passion centric with your career choices, I think you need to be strengths centric, meaning what are you good at? Because what you're really good at allows you to do it easily, and it's more pleasurable to do something that comes naturally to you than something that comes harder to you. So think about that. And I actually do career sessions with students who are really torn between this, and I help them out with this because it's super important. And I'll stop here after this. The career centers and the traditional advice that you get from faculty and staff are often has good intentions, but are just off in terms of what they're actually saying. You have to know the career landscape of what's going on. I mean, with artificial intelligence coming in, retail jobs are shrinking. So even, there was a time where you can fall back on retail for certain things. Those kind of jobs are dwindling more and more. And so that safety net of plan B or plan C for your career, it's dropping fast. I'll just give you one example. One of the fields of like car insurance or insurance in general, with driverless cars, car insurance is probably going to become a little more cheaper. With it being cheaper, that means and things being automated and those kind of things, it's more likely there's going to be some job loss in that sector. Even with paralegal and even lawyers, there's like that's starting to dry up. Like, it's just incredible how far-reaching artificial intelligence is going to be impacting us. Now, the good news is that artificial intelligence is probably going to be a big part of creating a totally different sectors that we never even thought of. Right? People thought that the Industrial Revolution was going to shut, the country down, but it just spawned different types of jobs. That's the good news. So my thing is, whatever you choose, make sure that it's not just based on a hobby of yours, that it's based on a strength of yours, and go from there. Because again, you're more likely to find something in that space than anything else. Moving on. And again, this is a picture of Carlos Ortiz. I think that might be his artwork in the background. Actually, I think Montclair State featured some of his stuff on campus too, which is pretty dope. So Mike Rowe from Dirty Job says millions of people who have stopped looking for work are ignoring 5 million genuine opportunities. That's not polemic or judgment or an opinion. It's fact, and so is this. Most of those 5.6 million opportunities don't require a diploma. They require a skill. So going back to your strengths, if you marry your strength with a technical skill, it's amazing. My wife is really good with language. She picks up language pretty quickly. That's a strength of hers. I think if she ever wanted to marry that with a technical skill, and she has a great job doing project management for an education software company, and she's good. But if she wanted to go beyond that and go say, hey, I want to pick up a computer language, she's taking her strength and shifting that into a technical skill, marrying that, and that's what Mike Rose is saying is that there's things that we're not. Everyone wants to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, all that stuff, right? But there's literally different worlds of work out there that we have no idea, that we're shielded from in higher ed, and to be honest, a lot of your faculty, your professors, and your career centers have such a minute understanding because it's so huge. The world of work and the different industries and the subcategories and how they differ and how they're similar are so vast that you're only getting 3% of what's out there. And the areas where there's actually growth and opportunity you're unheard of to you because you're in this bubble in higher ed, or your family might have been successful one time with this one sector that they're trying to push that on you, and it's you have to really do yourself a favor and look outside that bubble and seek out this kind of information, because your students, you're really strategically placed to network in this capacity more than anybody else. So I hope you take advantage of that. So do your research and check out those things. But how do we begin? So this is kind of bringing it home. There's foundational things that you can do for financial freedom. Okay, and I'm borrowing this from Dave Ramsey's 7 Baby Steps of Financial Freedom. Now again, if you want to be financially free at a young age, if you want extraordinary outcomes, you got to take extraordinary actions. Okay, let me just say it again. If you want extraordinary outcomes, you got to take extraordinary actions. And that is radical. And again, this is a fight for financial freedom. This is not, the easy way to get rich. That's BS. There's no such thing. There's simple but deep processes and things you can do. It's not easy. Just because things are simple doesn't mean they're easy. Like weight loss, exercise more and, burn more calories than you take in. That's simple. But if it was that simple, everyone would be able to lose weight instantly. But it's not. It's simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. So it's similar with this. The 7 baby steps are this, right here. And I tell you why it works. 1, because it's simple. It's easy to instantly jump in and start doing. It's linear. One of the biggest problems with financial literacy is that it throws so much information. You got to know information about how to set up a budget, how to do this with your credit cards, and making sure you're monitoring your identity and all that, identity theft and all that stuff. And then what about investing and how do you even getting into investing is a whole nother level. And it seems too overwhelming to learn all these different facets of financial liberty, and people shut down and they don't want to bother. So it's linear. This process takes into account that you're going to be on certain steps for a long time, and that's the only thing you got to worry about. What's in front of you, and how to get to the next stage. After that next stage, then you worry about the next stage and how to do that. So it's simple, it's linear, it's psychology based. Again, it's based on the heart and your emotions, not just math. Because if it was about math, you wouldn't be in the problem to begin with. Also, It has a historical track record of success. Listen, name any one of your financial gurus out there and ask all of them how much money they saved or made as a result of their advice, and line them up against all the people that Dave Ramsey has helped to become 100% debt free. And I guarantee you that the impact using this system is out of this world, not even close second to the amount of people who have become 100% debt free. So it has a historical track record of success. Again, go to his website. You can Google him and find out from there. But here's the first baby step. $1,000 cash as a baby emergency fund. One of the biggest things that happens is that when you're trying to save all this money, but also invest all this money, is that when something strikes, it's all tied up. You can't save fast enough for an emergency because you're trying to invest in this and pay this other card down aggressively. And so baby step one is put everything else on minimum payments. Go as low as you can and put $1,000 in cash as an emergency fund. Don't worry about anything else. Even to the point where if you're late or you have to skip a payment, it's better to get the $1,000 cash. I know that sounds radical, but it's better to get the $1,000 cash, because if your car breaks down and your money's all tied up trying to pay back this, pay that, and also save and invest, you're always going to be going to that credit card to make up for it, and that cycle will continue over and over again. Step two, use the debt snowball to pay off your debt. But the house, for you as students, most of you, I'm pretty sure, don't own a house. Baby step three, a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. So once you're paying off your debt, and again, we'll explain this in the video, all that stuff, once you get paid off your small debt, like anything that's not your house, once that all is paid off, then you go hardcore with your emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. In case you get fired, laid off. Imagine having 6 months to really rebound. That's pretty awesome. From there, invest 15% of your household income into retirement. Now imagine that. Imagine being able to spend 15% of your income, not to anything else, but in retirement, save for college for your kid. For you, that might not be the case. Pay off your home early. So you'll be doing extra payments to pay off your home early. And then by that, there's people who are completely debt free by 40 or 50 years old. Some of them even younger, if they're both working, a parent, you and the significant other or spouse are working together. You can be completely debt free in 5 to 10 years. Now think about that. The average lifespan is about 80 something. Imagine that, living from 35 to 80 being debt free. And if you get a $50,000 job, you're just bringing that baby in. You're just caking that. There's no all these extra crazy bills. So you have this core essential bills, but all that other stuff, credit cards, student loans, all that stuff, that's pretty incredible. So from there, pay off your home, build wealth, and give generously. So you give it back to community efforts and those kind of things. This is a video that you can play on your own, but it's pretty much starts with different baby steps. Again, the first two baby steps are what students are going to focus on. They can watch this video, and after they watch the video, I break and say, hey, in the next 5 to 10 minutes, brainstorm. If you had this weekend to come up with $1,000, what could you do? Because again, one of the things that he goes out in his book and his program is that when we talk about fighting for financial freedom, there has to be a level of intensity. And so if this activity is to spark that intensity, what if you can, if there's a will, there's a way. If this is another activity to trigger this. It's amazing how context and scenarios can play a role in our actions and how far we can go to do something. How how deep we will dig in our own life to make something happen when the scenario is right. So, for example, if what if someone that you love was stricken with a disease, and there was only one vaccine left, and it cost $1,000, and you had to be the first one to pay for it, and you won the lottery to get this one. And everyone applied for this lottery to get this last vaccine, and you got the lottery, you won. But here's the thing: you found out on a Friday, and you had to pay it on Monday. What would you do if someone's life was on the line that you loved? It's amazing how far we will go when the conditions are right. And so this activity is not to be that extreme, but it says, what would you do if you had to fund this emergency fund this weekend? Not too long ago, we got hit with some unexpected bills, and I sold some laptops, and I'm still selling some other stuff to get some extra cash because cash is king. Being able to have liquid cash and money that I can use to take care of things is better than a credit card. And so the more cash I have, the less likely I'm going to pull from credit cards. Then boom, I'm going to do that. So when things happen that deplete my emergency fund, I got to be aggressive to replenish that emergency fund to make sure I'm not caught in a bad spot. And so I'm aggressive. I'm creative. I'm thinking outside the box to get that $1,000 back up. So this activity is to really target that creative thinking for a student. The debt snowball. This is something that goes in a deeper level of like, what does it freaking mean? Basically, you take your debt from smallest to highest. Let's say you have $1,000 credit card, a $500 credit card, and then a $200 bill from like school, like bookstore or whatever that somehow slipped by. Dave Ramsey says start with the smallest first and put everything else on minimum payments. So you aggressively pay off the $200, and let's say it's $100 a month you can pay, and the other ones are $25 minimum payment. You're paying $100 there, and then $25, and then $25 for the other two bills. Now fast forward to the next month, you pay the second $100 for the first bill. That's $200, being effectively canceling that out, and then paying the $25 and then $25 on the minimum payment for the other two. The third month, you don't have that $100 payment that was going towards a $200 debt. So now you use that $100 and tag that on to the minimum payment that you were paying already to the $25. Now you're paying $125 towards that second highest debt, which was $500. From there, you do the same thing until you get it down, and the next thing you know, that third debt, which is $1,000, you're not paying minimum payment now. Now you're paying $150 towards that, and so you'll be paying that in under a year. And so that is just the power of the snowball effect. That it gives you a psychological win because you banged out one credit card or one bill, and you're working your way up. And so you build momentum, or you build a snowball effect where it kind of grows over time. And next thing you know, you'd be surprised at how fast you can get out of this when you think about that way. So activity is to do the starting point of a budget. There's a handout. And it's a way to help them find, also included in that as a way to find out their debt and how to work on that. And identifying that, because a lot of it's like some of them don't even know what they're in debt for. Like they're just kind of like, they know they got some bills, but they're not looking at the APR or how much, all that stuff. They don't know. So a lot of that, part of the activity is to get to know that too. So that's that. Depending on time, I have this as a bonus, where it's an envelope system and also a spending tracking system that I use for Mint. and also a link to Excel templates. And so what's cool about this is that if you click on these things in the PowerPoint slide, it has a hyperlink to them. So you should be able to go to these things. But the envelope system is a great way to manage your spending in a way that's kind of mindful. When it's on a debit card, you just swipe and forget about it. But when it's on an envelope system, which they explain later, you feel the spending. You're less, and once it's gone for the month, it's gone. You're way more likely to abide by your spending budget when it's tangible, physical, in an envelope, and you carry that with you everywhere you go. So some are like, my wife has like all these different like envelopes, and she designed them to make it look pretty. Mine's just like one big envelope, and then this is like whatever I spent on that month is that's it. That's probably the thing that I wish I did better. We do better job on, but I know when we're on it, and it's very powerful. So check that out. I'll skip this video, but it's kind of gives something for them to shoot for. Very powerful. And then lastly, to finish, again, you do these things hardcore, you're setting yourself up for the next step down the road, and that's true freedom. If you want to be if you want financial literacy is like just moving the furniture around. You're not really changing the house. You're just moving the furniture around. But if you want to be financially free, it's like you're doing a renovation of your house. So if you want your financial house in order, you need a renovation. You don't need to move furniture around. You need to break down the thing and do it all over again. And so this is the difference between financial literacy versus financial freedom. So take these videos into account and check them out, because before you do a renovation, there's some prep work that has to be done. And these first 3 steps are that prep work. And it's way easier to do it from a baby step, those first 3, than to do it all in one shot. So again, that's the benefit to this. Now, to learn as you go doesn't mean that you can't learn about those other steps down the road. I think you should. There's amazing, again, these things, when you click on them, they are hyperlinks. They'll take you to there. But there's audiobooks and podcasts. I mean, actually, his book is on YouTube. Like, he has a book on this stuff, and it's on YouTube. I mean, you should pay for it. It's worth the money. But if someone's saying, I'm so broke I can't even pay for it, like, screw that. You got YouTube. YouTube this stuff. And there's playlists and books on these topics. Dave Ramsey has a podcast that's for free, where you can. I mean, what's so great about the podcast is that you're learning from real people in real scenarios. That I learned a lot. Like, I learned a lot about certain things just by listening to the scenarios. Because one day I might be in that scenario, and I don't have to ask when I'm in it. I know already how to do it, and I'm doing it, listening to it on my commute and all that stuff. So I finish this off with a handout, a master to-do list for financial success, and if they do a certain amount of these and can prove it to me, I'll make a donation to them, to emergency fund, to help fund it. And I don't give them an emergency fund. I give them a donation towards it. Not a lot of money, but enough to be like, wow. But they sign up for Total Money Makeover DVD. They have an online learning platform, or that you could buy the DVD so you can keep it and replay it. Get email, text notifications of balance withdrawals and limits for your bank. A lot of personal banks, like some students don't even know what their daily balance is. And then they forget, something comes out, and then boom, they're overdrawn, and all that stuff. Set up a master calendar of due dates of when bills are coming out. You should know when is coming out, when, and how much. Get a spreadsheet of all your accounts, your banking card, credit card scores, financial aid, loans, how to log in those systems. The account, maybe not the account numbers, but the last 4 maybe. A lot of this is synced using that app, mint.com, that I shared earlier, but some people might not like that. But if you want to, so that's like a nice bucket of like all your stuff, your accounts in one place, where if maybe you change address, you know where to go to change all the accounts. God forbid you change your address, and then you got a credit card going to an old address, and you forget about it, and then boom, next thing you know, you're in collections. You take a huge hit on your credit score. So there's a great way to keep track of those things. Here's an important one that I think I wish more people did, because this actually has the most bang for your buck in terms of impact, is set up weekly appointments for money move meetings. You try to make money moves, get a group of people together and help each other out with setting up on a budget, plan your week, your envelope system, meal prep, snack prep. Like, some students have gone together on Sundays and kind of cooked together, and they all made a dish, and and like a potluck meal prep type thing, and they packaged it, cooked it together, packaged it together, and then boom, they're on their way. And very healthy for bonding and the community. And that was very powerful. And snack prep, it doesn't have to be like, if you're an amazing cook, like, everyone buy some snacks, get a good deal on it, maybe at BJ's or Sam's Club or something, come together, spread them all out, and then boom, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have a snack throughout the day. So no vending machine, no going to the crazy overpriced lunchroom, cafeteria, that kind of thing. So yeah, do that with students as a group and help set that up. This is another thing that's game changing too. Find a financial and career mentor, not just one or the other. And try to set up things. Again, students can meet with me to find one, to how to recruit for one. There's special tactics that I use for networking and recruitment that can be translated to finding your mentor. And you can meet monthly or discuss financial learning, or even career advancement. I mean, if you are a sophomore or junior, like, you gotta have this stuff already. Like, you gotta have a career mentor already. Like, if you're not, you're really messing up with your game plan here. You might find yourself, again, no bashing this. Like, you do what you gotta do. I'll scrub toilets if I have to, but if I can get more money doing something else, I will. But if you are a sophomore or a junior and you don't have a career mentor, you are more likely to be working at Walmart, paying your school debt after graduation. So your degree is not going to really feel that great after graduation. So be mindful of that. Like, get on it. Get a career advisor to help you out. Not just from the Career Center, by the way. As much as I love them, I have found that a lot of career centers are out of touch and disconnected. I'll be honest. This is so powerful about the internet. I can say whatever I want and not feel bad about it, if it's the truth. And there's some bubbles in higher ed, and in career centers are just starting to catch up to the career realities. And some of them are just so behind that you please go into them and use them, but not just be dependent on them. Find other sources of information too. Create or join a group who meet regularly for money moves meetings together. Consider a second job, side hustle. Sell things on Facebook, Marketplace, eBay, entry-level sales jobs. I mean, that sales and customer service are such universal skill sets that have served me so well. So I'm really, I encourage people to do that. Because sales is like a life thing, a life skill. You talk about first dates, second dates, trying to get that proposal approved at your job. That's sales, all right? Like, that's not a front. Like, persuasion is a thing you use every day. And you want that extra credit from your professor. You gotta convince them that there's a reason why you're late and you deserve an extra credit opportunity. That's sales, okay? So get a sales job, and don't kind of like look at that as something that's beneath you. Like, oh, sales are just car salesmen. They're shady and grimy. No. Sales is a powerful skill set to have in your arsenal. Powerful. And also sign up for life insurance, term life insurance to be exact. Especially at being this young, you're probably the healthiest you might ever be, to be honest, right now. So if you lock a 30-year life insurance plan, or 20-year, that's super cheap. It could be really super generous in terms of what it pays for. So again, if you don't know what these terms mean, again, this is just a starter Google these buzzwords, find your mentor. I mean, hit me up too if you want some of these directions and the stuff. But sign up for life insurance now, like this weekend even. Very powerful stuff. So Master To-Do List for Financial Success is a handout, and they check off, and if they can prove they've doing a certain number, I get towards them. Yeah, so powerful tool. That took a while because I'm kind of speaking to you, the facilitator, and sorta speaking to the student as well, if the student is listening to this. So I usually go through that a little faster because we watch the actual videos instead of me explaining everything. But the discussion in Q&A, I kind of have these talking points there to really kind of even have them to share what works for them too, because you'd be surprised of what happens when they start kind of like, they have everyone, some people have good tricks and good tips, so it's like students have stuff too. They already know some of this stuff too. It's just that, they need to share it with one another too. So that's always a discussion, not just a Q&A, especially with Bitcoin and digital currency. We used that a lot this year because there was a lot of spikes in value, and we had some investments in Bitcoin that really helped us out. We had some that helped with some Christmas spending that really came in play. That was very powerful for us. So yeah, great topics to discuss and have for ongoing learning. And that's it, guys. To get to this PowerPoint, all you have to do is go to bit.ly / I think it's called Fight for Financial Freedom. No. Fight for Freedom, is it? No. I have to get this to you guys in another bit.ly. But I'll have it stored somewhere. Actually, no, it might be in the first one. Usually I have it in notes somewhere. And some of these things have embedded links to them, so that when you click on them, it leads you to the videos, it leads you to the apps. That's really important. Like this one right here, mint.com. Here's some Excel templates that you can look at, because some people are pen and paper. Some people would like to have a budget on Excel spreadsheets. And so there's a lot of different templates that people can just download and use for that. So check that out. And as you're checking that out, again, when I do speaking engagements, it's few and far between because I'm focusing on this. It's Panvisio. It's an organization I started to help nonprofits and churches make the most of technology. And I used to do public speaking way more often. I was like averaging like 1 or 2 speaking engagements a month on the side, and I felt like instead of having like one, I wanted to have something that was impacting the organizations that support the people I'm speaking to amplify what they're doing and strengthen them. So it was a tough decision, but it's what we do. And we have two amazing clients at our retainer. And I have some special projects that I've done in the past for higher ed associations and also faith-based or denominations. You can hear about success stories and what I've done in the past. And hope to hear from you guys soon. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna try that link one more time. bit.ly /fight for financial freedom. Sweet, that's what it is. I must have misspelled it originally. It's fight, bit.ly, fight for the number 4, not spelled out, the number 4, fight for financial freedom, and you'll get the PowerPoint right there. And I hope this helps you out. God bless, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.